Is this yet another great clone of Jean-Paul Gaultier's Ultra Mauve, this time around from the brand of Ahmed Al Maghribi, or is this a hard pass? Well, let's find out that today. But before we do, you know that I'm George, the nice medic gentleman, and it's time for your dose of some fragrance content. Now, the fragrance that I'm going to talk about in today's video, as I said, comes from the brand of Ahmed Al Maghribi, and it's called simply Akhlaq, which is a sort of a strange and funky name, and to me at least it sounds a bit incomplete, but that's the name that they went with. Now let's very quickly go over the packaging, because it's a rather nice packaging. First of all, you get this sort of an outer box which is completely white out with golden accents. The important stuff here is that the bottle size is 100 milliliters and the concentration is EDP. Once you open up that outside box, you're greeted by a sort of a better looking inside box. You open it up like this, and it's a thick cardboard box, and in fact the packaging is quite nice, and the bottle design looks like this. White bottle, sort of a frosted glass finish, plastic cap which is a snug fit, and this kind of looks nice. And probably this may look a little bit familiar, because a few months ago I reviewed this fragrance from Ahmed Al Maghribi, which is called Brûlée, and this is a whole sort of a mini line that contains a total of 3 fragrances. The third one is called Tif Tif, I think, and from what I've seen online, it's a little bit more on the feminine side. That's why I'm not bothered with that one yet, but probably I'll end up picking that one up somewhere in the future, so I can complete this, you know, sort of a mini fragrance line from the brand of Ahmed Al Maghribi. All around, the packaging and the presentation are really nice, because this also has a pressurized sprayer that I'm going to show you in a second. Let's check out the sprayer in action, and then I'll talk about the scent itself. As I said, it's a pressurized sprayer, quite nice actually. The other one, Brûlée, also had a pressurized sprayer. I'm going to spray it on my hand, because I'm already wearing this one on my right hand today. And as I said, this fragrance is a clone of Jean-Paul Gaultier's Ultra Mauve. But just like Brûlée was a clone with a twist, this one is also a clone with a twist. Brûlée is a clone of Parfum de Marly's Altair, and it's quite a good one, but it has quite a bit of an interesting twist. It has more fruity sweetness, it has a creme brulee note that's included into the scent itself, but in general smells quite close to you know, to Altair. And Akhlaq is pretty similar story, because when this opens up, especially in the first like 2 or 3 minutes, this smells very similar to Ultra Mauve. It opens up with that blast of sweetness, with a bit of the aromatic nature of the original fragrance, thanks to a lavender note. You get a bit of the minty freshness, just like you'll find with Ultra Mauve, although those notes are not listed into the note breakdown of this one, at least the note breakdown that I was able to find. The opening smells very similar to Ultra Mauve, but that lasts for about a minute or two, and after that this starts to turn into something a little bit different. First of all, there's some additional fruits in this fragrance. At least personally, I pick up something like a melon note, which adds more sweetness, adds a bit more intensity to the scent profile. And in overall, the opening in this one, especially after the first couple of minutes, is a lot sweeter and a lot more intense than Ultra Mauve. While Ultra Mauve remains a very sweet fragrance, it has this playful and rather aromatic touch from the lavender and the mint, which this one has, but only has for a minute or two. And after that, you know, this becomes like a sweeter, a more fruity take of the Ultra Mauve scent profile, and that's where it starts to become a little bit different. Now, in the note breakdown of this one, there's also the notes of vanilla, which definitely is present in this one, and also the note of leather. And now I can't say that I pick up a leather note in this fragrance. Maybe there is, although even if there is one, it's not very strong. But on the mid and the deep dry down, this again remains similar to Ultra Mauve, but slightly different, because in the mid dry down it still retains that rather more intense fruity sweetness compared to the original fragrance, and then on the dry down it dries to a slightly more vanillic and slightly more powdery version of Ultra Mauve. So in the air this smells similar to Ultra Mauve, especially in the opening, but after the first few minutes this turns into something a little bit more fruity, a little bit sweeter, a little bit more intense, and then on the deeper dry down it becomes more vanillic than Ultra Mole itself, and maybe a hint more powdery. All around, this is a very interesting take, a very interesting sort of an hybrid clone, and I'll tell you why I use the word hybrid, because after the first few minutes, when this starts to turn into more fruity and more intense and sweeter version of Ultra Mole, this starts to very strongly remind me of a fragrance from the brand of Swiss Arabian, which is called Primal Coat, which is a clone with a twist of stronger witch chew, but definitely a lot of people find it sort of similar to Ultra Mole, me including. So this to me feels like a mix between you know, the intense sweetness, fruity sweetness of Swiss Arabian's Primal Coat and the vanillic, sort of an aromatic and minty part of the scent profile of Ultra Mole, and it's a very interesting fragrance that has really nice quality and smells very, very nice. Performance wise, this is a strong fragrance that easily lasted 8 hours on my skin, pretty much from the first spray, the first time I sprayed it. So I found absolutely no issues with the performance of this one, and in fact it's bordering baseline mode performance, because it also tends to project quite nicely, and almost performance wise it's almost on par with something like Rayhaan Lion, which is a straight up clone of Ultra Mole and is the best performing clone of Ultra Mole that I have in my collection. This is maybe slightly less of a performer, and it's pretty much on par with my bottles of 9 PM, for example, from Afnan, but definitely this is a very, very strong scent. Price wise, now this is interesting because I've seen this fragrance going for a few different prices that are very, very different from each other. For example, the first time I saw this one in my country, it was going for something like 75 euros or something like that, which is way, way overpriced in my opinion. But I was finally able to snatch a bottle of this one for roughly around about 25-26 euros, so around about $30. At that price point, I think this is a real steal if you enjoy the scent profile of Ultra Mole. And versatility, I would say this is as versatile as the original, meaning that this is a very playful, a very youthful fragrance that can be worn pretty much throughout the year, maybe apart from the hottest days of summer, simply because this is very sweet and intense, and probably may end up being a bit cloying. But other than that, this is a masculine fragrance that's almost you know, feels unisex because of the amount of sweetness, and I find it to be very versatile. And at the end, I just want to share a few final thoughts about a clock from the brand of Ahmed Al Maghribi. As I said, when I picked this one up, I expected this one to be a clone of Ultra Mole, but I ended up finding it to be more of a hybrid clone, an interesting hybrid clone between the pure sweetness, the aromatic lavender and minty nature of Ultra Mole, and the sweet, the intense sweetness of something like Primal Coat from the brand of Swiss Arabian. All around, this was quite an impressive find for me personally, because I find it to be with a very good quality. It's an extrait de parfum concentration. It comes really nicely packaged. It has a very strong performance, even straight out of the box. I've had this for around about 10 days or something like that. So even with a very little time to mature, this has been a great performing scent for me, and I really like Ultra Mole. I've said this many times before, and any good clone of Ultra Mole or inspiration of Ultra Mole I find to be a nice fragrance. So if you like Ultra Mole, but if you don't already own any of the other clones like 9 PM, like you know, Afnan, like Rayhaan's Lion, then this is definitely something that will probably be interesting to you. Or if you are a big fan of Ultra Mole just like me, and you want to add one more good clone or inspiration or a hybrid clone of Ultra Mole, again, I think this deserves attention. So guys, in today's video I talked about a very interesting hybrid clone that comes from the brand of Ahmed Al Maghribi that's called Akhlaq, and this one, in my opinion, is a hybrid clone between Jean Paul Gaultier's Ultra Mole and something like Swiss Arabian's Primal Coat. I hope that you found today's video interesting. If you did, give it a like, and I also hope that you're going to join me in my next video for your dose of some fragrance content. And until then, stay safe and bye bye.